session topic is fall protection. My name is Margaret Boyland, and my role here is the operations manager. So I do a little bit of everything, and I'm always happy to help in any situation that arises. So I hope every day in your life, at work and at home, is full of sunny blue skies, green lights, smooth sailing. But we all know that we're here for training today because we need to be ready for not the sunny sky, green light days, but when situations arise. So I know what I'm doing. I've done this all the time. I've been in this situation before. Well, even one step before that, you've been trained. So if you're driving in your car, you've been trained. You know what to do with these traffic light situations. You're competent. You hold a license. Some people are even considered masters because they have trained others through the years. All of a sudden, in a split second, the situation changes. You still know what you're doing, right? What are you going to do in this situation?
Slow down, prepare to stop.
The technical answer is you prepare to slow down. But what do we really do?
Go through it.
We look for cops before we go through it, right? That's going to be one of the first things you do. You're starting to assess the situation. So you look around, you determine, are there any cops? The next part of your analyzing goes a little step further and you think, okay, where am I in the intersection? How far into it am I? How far before I approach it?
What's the speed limit?
What's the speed limit?
How gauges how fast the light's going to change.
How fast does this light change if you know the intersection really well? Oh, this is a really long yellow. How much time do I have?
3 seconds till it switches to red.
You have 3 seconds, you have 5 seconds. Some lights you have 7. So you're kind of analyzing what you're going to do. You're assessing. Well, in this situation, it's sunny. It could be raining. It could be snowy. That does determine what you do in all situations. Well, I think I know some of you pretty well in that you're competitive. And by human nature, some piece of this puzzle, all of a sudden, you want to win. You have that desire to win. And you're going to take control of the situation, and you've decided. You've made the decision. There aren't any cops around. It's a long yellow. I'm pretty close to the intersection. I'm not going that fast. I'm just going to speed up a little bit more. In a split second, the guy in front of you hits their brakes and stops. All of a sudden, I'm mad because I knew I could have made it through that light, but he's taken that power away from me. He's changed the situation again. And I, in some reason, feel as though I've just lost. Well, in all of our lives, we're filled with these really great examples that you see all the time. You know them. A yellow traffic light is an easy analogy of a safety situation where you're trained. You know what to do, especially with fall protection. You know the hazards. You know how you're supposed to prevent yourselves from being in harm's way. You shouldn't run a red light. So why get to the point where it's red? Err on the side of caution. Slow down a little bit. Your safety is more important than putting yourself in harm's way because things change in a split second. So I'm going to ask all of you to help me in this process. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. And I want you to think about the 4 most important people in your life. The 4 people that you do not want somebody else to run a red light on and hit. The 4 people that you care about more than anything. Can you see them smiling? Aren't they who you work so hard for? They're worth it. And so are you. And so as you open up your eyes, and you can still hear those names of the people. These are my 4. They're who I care more about than anything in the whole world. It's my husband and my 2 girls. And never would I want to put myself in a situation where I couldn't be there for them. But a piece of the puzzle is me. I need to make good choices. So as you're looking for motivation to stay attentive today, which most of you have heard this message more than once. Some of you have heard it 5 or 10 or maybe even 20 times from some of the same people. It's hard to come up with new ways to make our training impactful when it's the same facts year after year. I want you to find the motivation in what's most meaningful to you. And I think it's what you go home to every day. It's your wife. It's your brand new little baby that you just brought home from the hospital. It's your parents that you've seen work so hard in their life that now you're the caretaker for, and you need to help them in the last stages of their life. There's a lot of people who need you, and we need your help to make sure you get home safely to them. So with your safety motivation, a new idea that I want to ask you to be charged with is, what's your safety legacy? Because I know all of you are skilled craftsmen, and you deliver great quality roofs, and you're proud of your workmanship, but part of what you're proud of, I know, is your safety legacy. So I want 3 things to influence you. I want what you know, what you do, and what you care about to lead your decision-making for safety. Because if you think about those things, you know better. You're trained. Your actions are done with intent and what it's all really about anyway. Use those as your guide to be your safety legacy, because you don't want to be known as the knucklehead who was careless. All right, OSHA. It's our guide of how to be safe, and it develops a framework for us to create our safety policies. So in 2015, they had about 4,800 people who didn't make it home at the end of the day to their 4 people that they care more about than anything in the world. 93 people a week, or 13 people dying every single day. Those are big numbers. But compared to 1970, where 38 people were dying, we've come a really long way. So what does that tell us? They're making good rules. We need to follow them, and we'll all be safer. Warren Roofing's history and trends on simple accidents are right in line with that. We're employing more people, working more hours, and we're having less accidents. So we're falling right into developing a better safety program, and we're keeping more people working more safer. So we're proud of that, and we want our trend to continue. As they narrow down of all the people who experience fatalities in work, of all the people who die, 1 in 5 are related to construction. It's the highest industry. It's why our insurance rates are so high. It's why you work in such a dangerous environment, and we recognize that, and we need to keep you prepared and informed of everything that's changing. Drilling down a little bit more, falls are the highest of the fatal 4. And falls are most likely to come from a fall protection violation. So that's why we're going to spend a big chunk of time talking about fall protection. You'll also see the other topics that we'll talk about later this morning. But these fatal 4 have also been referred to as the focused 4. So when OSHA's going to do a job site inspection, they're focusing on where people are having the worst accidents. And that's why they arrive on our job sites more than most other situations. We're reminded to do our training and to provide the right equipment, and that those things go hand in hand. You need to be trained in how to use the right equipment. You need to be provided the right equipment. And with fall protection, that's subpart M. Everybody here today has been trained in these topics. So these are our learning goals. I bet you can answer these questions right away without any trouble. But this is what we're going to get as our reminders before the end of this session. When is fall protection needed? Above 6 feet. Who's responsible for fall protection? What? Everybody. All together. Everybody. What are the different types of fall protection? You don't have to name them now because we're going to go through them. And what is fall restraint? So we're going to touch on these topics before we're done. Guardrails. It's our most preferred type of fall protection. Why? Because it is the best example of fall restraint. When the guardrails are up, it eliminates the hazard of a fall. It keeps you from falling. It's the best fall restraint. Guardrails, we love them. But when you're installing them, you need to be tied off. So that's going to incorporate our next topic that we're going to talk about. The guardrail, the top rung needs to be 42 inches tall, plus or minus 3 inches. Mid-rail, 21 inches, plus or minus 3. Toe boards, the outward force needs to withstand 200 pounds when you run up against it. We're going to see a good example of that in just a minute too. Our personal fall arrest systems, that's the second form of fall protection, the harnesses that you wear. They have some numbers that they need to be compliant with, and that they need a maximum arresting force of 1,800 pounds. It must be rigged so that you can't fall more than 6 feet, and it must stop an employee in 3.5 feet. So if you've done this training before, you remember how we talked about the average male is 6 feet tall, his D-ring is on his back at about a 5-foot height. How much rope does he have out? Is he wearing a shock-absorbing lanyard? How much will that open? And all of a sudden we would see everybody glaze over, like 6 minus 1 is 5, plus 3.5. How tall is the building? And that got too confusing, I think. The number I want you to remember is 16.5 feet. So if you're working on a 12-foot tall building and you have a ton of line out and you fall, you're going to hit the ground before the harness can catch you. You need to keep 16 feet in mind, that you need to stop. You need not to have a long lot of rope out to get back to the idea of fall restraint, to keep you right at the roof edge, to keep you from falling. And that idea of 16 feet is not a number we want you to ever jeopardize, but that's an important learning goal as well. Okay, the components of a fall arrest system, other than the harness, you need an anchor point. It can be tied off to a raptor or a horizontal lifeline, and have your shock-absorbing lanyard to slow you down. So we're going to get into those, but we're going to watch quickly a little clip of how to properly wear your harness.
Today we'll be talking about how to properly put on, or more precisely, don a full body harness. Guardian offers a wide variety of fall protection harnesses with different webbing and buckle options. The worker featured in today's video will be donning our Velocity harness. To get things started, the first and most important step of using any piece of fall protection equipment is to inspect it. Hold the harness at the dorsal D-ring and make sure all buckles are disconnected and all webbing straps are not twisted or tangled. Should you notice any sort of damage, take the harness out of service immediately and report it to your job site's competent person. After inspection is complete, place the harness shoulder straps over your shoulders, making sure the dorsal D-ring faces out. If the dorsal D-ring is too high or too low, remove the harness and adjust the D-ring so it is positioned correctly. The dorsal D-ring should be adjusted so it is positioned at the upper middle part of the shoulders. Next, you'll connect your leg straps. If the harness has a tongue buckle connection, adjust by pulling a strap through the buckle and locking it in place by connecting the tongue through a grommet on the strap. If the harness has a pass-through connection, connect by passing the male plate through the female plate to create a secure connection. If the harness has a quick connect connection, connect by clicking the male end into the female end, and disconnect by pushing the release buttons on each side of the buckle. Now we'll adjust and connect the chest strap. First, connect the chest strap buckle and ensure that the chest strap itself is positioned at the lower chest level, as shown. And the last step of the donning process is to make all your final adjustments. The shoulder, chest, and leg straps should be fitted snugly, but still allow for a full range of movement. tighten or loosen all straps as needed. Ensure the straps are not twisted, and secure as much excess webbing as possible with web clips or elastic keepers. To check if your leg straps are properly adjusted, use the hand test. An open hand should fit between your strap and your leg, but a closed fist should not. Proper adjustment is very important here, since straps that are fitted too loose or too tight can increase the risk of injury in the event of a fall. If you followed all these steps, congratulations. You've successfully donned your harness. And now that you're done, it's always best practice to have someone with the knowledge of the safe and correct use of harnesses to ensure that your harness is donned correctly. Use the buddy system to double check your work here, as a properly fitted harness is the key to ensuring your safety in the event of a fall. Until next time, be safe up there.
So I think one of the important pieces that don't take for granted is that buddy system, that check. And when you see somebody out there and you're like, hey, you're getting a little loose, like let's tighten that up. You know, if you fall, that could be more dangerous to you than anything. So if you're going to wear it properly. The shock absorbing lanyard, it's like your airbag that goes off. It stops the impact from hurting as badly. It will likely still be painful if you do experience a fall and your harness is what catches you. This will make it feel a little bit better. When it opens, it adds 3.5 feet. If it's been used in a fall, it needs to be replaced. If you see any of the red stitching coming out, it also needs to be replaced. We're going to go through before you leave today and replace any safety equipment that you feel you need. And I know beam straps have been a heavily requested item from the first group that we did yesterday. But if there's anything else within your personal fall arrest system that you feel like you need to have replaced, today's the day to do that. Our anchorage points. More and more common, you're seeing buildings being built with anchor point systems in mind. And whether that's for you or the window washers that come after, approved anchor points are more visible on the roof. They need to meet certain criteria and standards. 5,000 pounds of force for an employee that is falling off of a roof. If it catches you before you fall, it only needs to withstand 3,500 pounds of force. Hopefully you'll never need to know those numbers, but that's also what determines why you need the number of fasteners depending on the type of decking. And in the foreman's binder, there is a handout that shows, whether or not you have to fasten all the way down or just a couple or half. Raptors are an anchor point that are on every roof. We've made it our change on setup day that the first lift with the crane is not just the safety equipment, but the Raptor, so that people can be tied off immediately. Use that to start adding our guardrails to get people safe right away. Raptors cannot be used on Tectum decks. It's the only deck that we know that they are not allowed to be used on. Our horizontal lifeline. We're running into these in more of the Kent State types of projects, or where there's anchor points, you can run between two lines. They need to be installed by a qualified person, and you still need to be mindful of how much rope you have out, or if you're using a retractable lanyard so that you can't fall off the roof, even though you feel like you're given a little bit more tolerance in an area. When you're working in an aerial lift, you need to make sure you're tied off at all times. I always find this a little bit enjoyable because when I tend to go to the store, it seems to be when I see people in an aerial lift the most, whether they're replacing the lights above storefronts, and more often than not, they're wearing a harness that's not connected to anything. So while they have their harness on, they look safe, they don't have anything that's actually connecting them. So how could you just walk by and not say something? Well, I tend to get out my phone because we do all these little seminars, and I take a picture, and that gets their attention. And all of a sudden now they'll be willing to maybe talk. And so I say things like, I'm glad you're wearing your harness, but what are you tied off to? And then in a second, the guy, it's typically a guy, he'll reach down and he'll just connect right in. I go, oh, thanks, that makes me feel a little bit better. And you know, it's just about doing the right thing. Looking out for somebody, whether you know them or not, just to keep them safe. It's important when you enter an aerial lift that you do so with your hands. You need to maintain 3 points of contact similar to a ladder. If you've done the aerial lift training, you know some of those extra important steps as well. Warning lines. They have a place in our industry, but it's down on our list of preferred items. Warning lines need to be 6 feet in from the perimeter when there's no mechanical equipment being used, and 10 feet from the perimeter when there is mechanical equipment used. Warn roofing does not favor flags. It's not good enough. That's how we look at it. It's not really going to keep you safe. I think a lot of us take pride, even if it's not our own job that we're working on. As you drive through the city, you can spot Warren Roofing job sites with our beautiful guardrail systems. They're ours, and I think it's neat when you're on the freeway and you don't even know a setup has happened, and there it is, you know. With warning line systems, they have certain standards of how tall they need to be. They need to be 34 inches at their lowest point. The idea there is that if the flags get a lot of slack, it becomes a trip hazard, and it's out of the sight of vision for somebody walking, carrying something. Their tensile strength is significantly less. It's not going to really do anything if you bump into it, except fall down. They can consist of ropes, wires, or chains, and they need to have flags at least every 6 feet. The distance between stanchions cannot have too much slack, and that's a common maintenance item that if anybody's on site, they're always tightening the flags to keep them from sagging. It's something to be mindful of. We use flags a lot as more of a controlled access zone, roping off an area, not to go in that area, or as a guide from where you come up the ladder to walk as a walkway to get to our area of work. This controlled access zone keeps people in a safe area, and it also lets people know where we're not working. It's a guide. Safety monitoring system. It was 2 years ago that we formally said you can't just use a safety monitor as your form of fall protection on your own decision making in the field. It needs to have the approval of the project manager or the superintendent. And the reason being, without just being a joke, that a safety monitor really becomes the witness of the accident. There really isn't a lot that they can do to keep you from falling or to keep you safe. The rules of the safety monitor are that they have to be a competent person, they must not have any other duties, they must be on the same work surface, and you must be able to hear them. Again, an important piece is this isn't what we want you to do. We want the guardrails. We want you in a harness. Do you have any questions about that? All right. Hoisted areas. This is becoming a little bit more common to see whether it's scaffolding or hoisted platforms. And we're going to talk about scaffolding in depth. But it's important that those hoisted areas be protected with a guardrail system. Often we hear other trades removing pieces of those guardrail systems. Again, we'll address that a little bit more, but when you're working in these areas, you need to have your harness on. Steep slope roofs, we do come in contact with, not nearly as much as our flat roof. It's when our pitch is greater than 412, and they have a couple of different standards that can be allowed as fall protection, but we don't really use them here like safety nets. Holes and covers. This, to date, one of our most greatest potentials for a catastrophic accident happened with a journeyman, it happened with an apprentice. He was coming out of a different local. We were working just in Akron, and just to paint the picture, the regular foreman wasn't able to come to work on a Saturday because his mother-in-law had passed away. So it was right-hand man leading the job. And it was new construction with a general contractor that we don't work with very often. And the apprentice, who had 2 years' experience, his father is a journeyman roofer, the apprentice picked up a piece of plywood that was on the roof. And as he picked up the piece of plywood, he stepped right into a hole and he fell 26 feet. He really could have died because he landed on concrete. This little example shows how fast holes can be dangerous and what we need to do to protect ourselves against holes.
In the U.S., more than 800 construction workers die every year while on the job. Falls are the #1 cause of fatalities in construction. Falls cause 1 of every 3 construction worker deaths. These falls happen in a split second while workers are on roofs, scaffolds, ladders, bridges, and other work surfaces. But these deaths can be prevented. The video you're about to see shows how quickly falls at construction sites can lead to workers' deaths. The video will also show what employers must do so that the work can be done more safely. Employers have a responsibility to provide a safe workplace and required protective equipment. You'll see that using the right type of fall protection saves lives. Please be advised, the scenes you're about to see deal with deaths at construction sites and might be disturbing for some people. All scenes are based on true stories. 2 workers were framing the walls of a new 2-story house with a basement. They were working on the 2nd floor near an open stairwell. There was no guardrail or floor cover, and the workers were not wearing personal fall protection. After framing one section of a wall, the workers raised it and moved forward to put it into place. While moving forward, one of the workers stepped towards the unguarded stairwell to hold the side of the wall section. He fell down the unguarded stairwell opening. He fell 20 feet and landed on the concrete basement floor. He died from fatal head and internal injuries. Let's look at the events leading up to this tragic incident and see how it could have been prevented. Originally, the workers were nailing in the boards to frame a section of the new wall, and the stairwell was not protected by a guardrail. Now, the stairwell is protected by a guardrail as required by OSHA. As before, the workers are moving forward to install the completed wall section. This time, as the worker steps toward the stairwell, the guardrail stops him. He continues forward to place the frame section in place. Another way to protect workers is by putting a proper cover over the stairwell opening. The cover must be secure. As shown here, the worker steps onto the cover and continues to put the section in place. This example shows the importance of employers following OSHA's fall protection standards to ensure that workers are provided with a safe workplace. These types of construction deaths are preventable. The fall protection measures shown here save workers' lives. Use fall protection on the job. It could be the difference between life and death. If you would like more information, contact OSHA at www.osha.gov or 1-800-321-OSHA. That's 1-800-321-6742.
Okay. So we have done an excellent job at our fall protection at roof edges. We are focusing now more on fall protection within the perimeter of the roof, the holes in the roof, the skylights that are being cut through, the hatch being left open by other trades constantly going up and down. Those hazards seem to be almost more dangerous now because we've mastered and come so far with our exterior protection. So internal fall protection hazards of stairwells, hatches, holes, curbs need to be taken care of with proper precaution. We need to cover them, mark it with hole, secure it, It needs to be able to withstand twice the expected load. You can use flags to cover a hole as well, or a skylight area, just to keep it demarcated that we're not in that area. Ramps or walkways also need to have guardrail systems on there. Some new construction and remodeling or renovation projects where they're changing elevations, you see ramps being built by the general trades for us to use. If we're using them, they still need to be safe for us to do it. And if there aren't guardrails and toe boards in those situations, it's appropriate to ask them to be corrected. In some of our big projects, like at the Q, as you were approaching your work area, you came in contact with other dangerous situations. If you were to fall, you're not just falling a great distance, but you could be falling into water, which would create a drowning situation, which would complicate your fall that much worse. So we need to be aware of other hazards that complicate fall hazards. Openings in walls that are greater than 30 inches or 18 inches high. So in roof elevation changes or where there's doors and thresholds, we need to put a little guard protection so that that's recognized as a fall hazard as well. With any good safety program, OSHA tells us that you could have a program, but you have to show that you're educating people on your program. You're doing retraining, which we're doing today, and we do all throughout the year with toolbox talks. But also, you have to enforce your policy. And while nobody likes getting pulled over by the cops and getting a ticket for running that yellow turning red light, nobody really wants to write anybody up for a fall protection violation. But it's the necessary evil to keep the importance and the value of the policy. So the first time it happens, it's a stricter policy. You're removed from the job and it's 1 day off without pay. The second time it happens, it's 1 week off without pay. We've never had to go further than that. We hope we don't. Because although the third offense says it's 1 month off without pay, we don't want to get there. You know, the 3-strike policy exists, but we'll avoid it at all costs because we'll do retraining to help you in the process. Does anybody have any questions? So let's recap our goals. When is fall protection needed?
Above 6 feet?
Working above 6 feet? Yes. Or when there are holes, around holes. That's the other big idea this year. Who's responsible for fall protection? All together. Everybody. Everybody's responsible for fall protection. What's the preferred type of fall protection? Guardrails. And what is fall restraint?
Not having excess line, allowing you to fall.
It keeps you from falling, yes. So you're restrained from falling. Protection is what catches you from a fall. Restraint is the guardrail that blocks the fall, or the retractable lanyard that catches you when you first start to fall. Thank you for paying attention.